Kia ora motueka. This week I was up at Ngatamoti and we shared about the parable of the talents. And in that parable, it's hard for us to live with one line right at the end. It says, everyone who has will be given more, and those who do not have, what even they have, will be taken from them. Now, when we're reading the Bible, we come to it with a certain lens. We come to it with a Western mindset, and we come to it with a 2025 understanding. And our 2025 understanding lives in a guilt culture. So when we do something wrong, the first question we ask is, what rule did I break? However, the Bible was written in a Jewish culture, in a shame culture, an honor culture. And in that context, the first question that people ask often is, what does this behavior say about the relationship? It's a different lens of looking at things. Now, Jesus is a master storyteller, and he says two things that are exactly the same, and then the third is the shocking bit. And so the two repeats in our story this morning. One is these two people get given huge amounts of money, a talent, which is confusing because that's a different word in English. But in this context, it means just a large sum of money. And they use it, or they invest it, and both of them come back with 100% profit. The person who had 5 bags comes back with 5 more. The person who had 2 bags comes back with 2 more. And then in the end, the master says both will receive the same reward. They get to keep what they got, and we know this because the last man's 1 gets given to the man with 10. Secondly, he says, well done, good and faithful servant. And thirdly, he says, come and share in your master's happiness. Now, God is represented by the master, and it's almost as if he says to these people, I know you well, because I give you responsibility, each according to your own, that you can handle, each according to what that person can handle. This God that is represented by the story is hugely generous, just giving sums of money away, massive amounts. But he doesn't seem to compare. It doesn't matter to him that one made 100% profit but had 10 bags in the end, and the other received 100% profit but had only 4 bags in the end. It doesn't seem to matter. If you do well, you will receive the same reward. And the other thing it says about it is this is a story about developing people, about seeing people reach their potential. And so God gives and they return. But then there's the third. Now the third person gets given 1 talent and he goes away and he buries it. Now remember that lens? Remember that question that a Jewish culture would ask? What does his behavior say about the relationship? Well, there's 2 things that he does. He publicly insults him. He calls him a hard man. And secondly, he buries the gift that was given to him. It's almost as if that says, in the context, I don't seem to know you or trust you. And it almost says, I think of you what I did with your money. I mean, when we think of the story of the prodigal son, that's exactly the kind of language that the prodigal son says. To those who see God as generous and loving and kind and loves responsibility, to them, joy and happiness and the master's kind of reward is given. I mean, if you've ever been around a new Christian, this is exactly how they act. They are just so joyful to found Christ and to have the happiness that comes with that. But to those who can't see God for who he is, who just no matter what, think he is a hard man, think he has a, rule definer, thinks about just, well, if he's given me anything, I'm just going to let it go. I'm just going to bury it. To those, you just continue to see that narrative, no matter how much you tell them. No matter what you say, they will continue to see God in that way. And in fact, if they meet Christians, that'll just confirm the story, because, of course, how could a God be loving and generous when his people are not? And hence, God's joy and happiness is taken from them. So the question that we ask is probably not the question to ask. We ask this question: have I invested what God has given to me well? Have I done it well enough? Am I better than that person? But that's not what God is saying in this story. God is saying in this story, who do you believe the master to be? Can you see his generosity? Can you see his delight in when his people take what he's given them and grow it? Can you see his grace, his love, his kindness, his pouring, and his intimacy that he offers? He knows you well, and he will only give according to your responsibility. So the question should not be, have I invested what God has given me well? Maybe the question should be, God, what have you placed in my hands? Who have you placed in front of me? And as we do that, and as we see God for who he is, the invitation from the Master is to come and share in his joy and happiness. Hope you have a great week. See you next time.